I want to show you an example here. I see some questions, but I'll get to that after I show you these examples. And in these webinars, we use station examples. We use real examples because I want this to be real. And but in pulling up this example and pulling up any station examples, I just want to be very clear. I'm not picking on anybody. I'm just pulling up an example that I thought best illustrated what the lesson is here. So this is a newscast, and I see this a lot. A lot of station sites are doing this, where there's the audio. Again, there's that expectation to read the audio, and 3 sentences about what the story is about. This it doesn't reveal too much. It's not particularly informative, but I can see this as being, maybe a promo or something that's read on air. But not totally engaging for the online audience. Not something I would spend a lot of time reading. So what I did was I listened to the audio and I transcribed it, and this is what I came up with. There's an act here that is in italics. And then I rewrote it to how I would like to see it for an online audience, using the QABCDS. And let's do a side-by-side comparison here. So the Q, so here's the act that I transcribed. Again, it's really wordy, right? The whole debt ceiling hullabaloo in Washington, that made his numbers go way down. Doesn't mean his numbers will stay way down. You can hear the act, right? But when you read it, it's stumbly. It kind of goes all over the place, which is fine to listen to. But once you see that, it doesn't quite translate too well. So the Q of the QABCDs is putting quotation marks around the act, and there's my quote. And then I'm actually going to jump to the B, breaking up large paragraphs, sentences, and quotes, because that's what I did here. Instead of, just putting quotes around the whole paragraph and saying I'm done for the day, I actually did some editing, like we do as journalists, and said what would the reader want to walk away with? What's the best information for the reader to walk away with? And it was about just ending it here. Let's see here. I think most politicians would say no, it's still a blue state. Done. You don't need to know. I mean, the other information wasn't clear enough for me to want to include it, so I cut that out. So that's the B. So we covered the Q, quotation marks around the acts. B, breaking up large paragraphs, sentences, and quotes. Let's go, and then the A, let's go to attribution. So here you see that it's that radio introduction, right? Maurice Carroll is Quinnipiac's pollster. Boom, you hit the clip, you hear the act. In this case, it's more interesting to know what he has to say, the whole debt ceiling hullabaloo in Washington, etc. And then his attribution goes here. It says Quinnipiac University pollster Maurice Carroll. And so, and of course, attribution can come before, but a lot of times when attribution comes before the quote, there's a bit of information in there, like Quinnipiac University pollster Maurice Carroll thinks that, this is not the best time for President Obama, etc. And then you'll generally see a quote, but it's usually not just, this is who we're going to hear from, quote. Okay, so that is the A. We covered the Q, the B, and the A. So let's talk about the C, converting numbers to digits. So hang on, let me pull up my cursor here. Okay, so then, so here again, with the radio script, we have the words written out. 45% of New Yorkers, 49% disapprove, 60%. And you see how the numbers can get lost in all this text. But, if you have just the digits, it pops a bit more, 45%, 49%, 60%. So that's where converting digits really comes in handy. Converting numbers to digits comes in handy. So D, let's talk about details. So the details I added here was the link to the actual poll. So, I mean, this is nice summary of what the poll was about. But, I mean, you presumably have the link open. You can go ahead and drop that into your text and offer that to your audience. All right, let me pull my cursor up here. I'm having some issue. So adding those details like links is really helpful. This law that Governor Cuomo signed, a link to that law, great. There's a beach that's being reopened. So more information about the beach and more information about this bacteria that had kept it closed. So those details are really helpful to your audience. So we covered the Q, A, B, C, D. Let's go to the S, subheads. You see how these subheads really draw your eye in a way that, you wouldn't be able to tell the transition from story to story on the left-hand side. But having those subheads really know, Oneida Shores Beach. I want to know about that, so I'll jump to that information. It's just captures people's attention. It makes things easy to scan, and an occasional use of bolded subheads just makes the text look a lot more interesting than this kind of array of words here. So those are the QABCDs. There are some questions here. Are short, incomplete sentences okay to grab the reader's attention? I think it depends. I think I get what you're asking, because certainly with radio, the spoken word, you can use short, incomplete sentences for dramatic effect. But again, it's that delivery. How does it look to the eye? Because this is very much a visual medium. I see the use of ellipses a lot with radio folks who are writing for online, and there is a time and place for that, but sometimes it gets a bit overused, because I know in radio scripts, you want to include that to remind yourself to do that pause for that listening effect. But for the visual experience, doesn't quite translate as well. So this is where having a colleague look at your work can be helpful, or just really taking a step back and looking at it from the audience perspective. And there's a question about numbers to digits. Are we supposed to use AP style when in doubt? Sure. I mean, NPR.org uses AP style. And, if this was 9%, instead of 45%, I'd write 9%. But once you get past 10, you start using the digits. And it depends on the style of the organization. So, AP style, you write out the word percent, but the Wall Street Journal uses a percentage sign. It really depends. Okay, any other questions? I don't see any so far. So QABCDs of converting your script, just to review, put quotation marks around transcribed acts. Attribution follows the quote, usually. Differentiating between says versus said, staying consistent within the time in which you're reporting, and breaking up long paragraph sentences and quotes, converting number to digits, adding details, using bolded subheads,